Hello, welcome back to the channel and my solar journey. And as we're now in 2023, what I thought I'd do today is look back at my solar generation in 2022, how much money it saved me, what observations I've had, how much energy I'd obviously generated, and just my observations of having solar panels fitted to my roof and having a battery system installed. And hopefully then I can use that information to try and predict what's going to happen in 2023 to my energy uses and savings. So to start off, I should probably give some background. So on the 24th of August 2022, I had my solar installation, and it was through Green Glow Limited. And I'll put a link to a video where I talk about my experience with them and whether I'd recommend them, and that will be just up here, actually probably on this side. I always use the wrong finger for doing this. And that solar installation involved 12 Qcell 385 watt panels going on my roof, and my roof is south facing and I live in Swansea. That then feeds, so that gives a total of 4.65 kilowatts. That goes down into a 5 kilowatt inverter, and that's a Solis inverter, and it's a hybrid inverter, and then that goes into a Pure Drive 5 kilowatt DC battery, or kilowatt hour DC battery. So that was my system, and as you see for that video, it cost about £8,500. From our household point of view, there's me and my partner live in this 3-bedroomed house. It's semi-detached, and we don't use that much electricity. We predicted about 6 to 7 kilowatt hours on average per day. So roughly a usage, according to our old energy bills, of about 2,100 kilowatt hours per year. So let's start off by seeing what our usage is over the past months, and this has been surprisingly consistent. So since we had the panels fitted, and that's when I've been monitoring all my data from, we have used in September 190.9 kilowatt hours, in October 209.2 kilowatt hours, in November 200 kilowatt hours, and in December 208 kilowatt hours. So it's roughly around that 200 kilowatt hour mark. So that's about, when it works out, it's about for a whole year that would be about 2,400 kilowatt hours. So it's a little bit more than what we were expecting, but then again we have changed our lifestyle, so we are using more electrical devices now because we can generate our own electricity. i.e. we've moved from using sort of the gas hob to slow cookers. We're using the oven and grill more, where if perhaps you would fry a steak or fry burgers before, we now do them in an electric grill. So that may account for a little bit of that. Or maybe we're just a little bit more flippant with using electricity now. So in total that means we have used 808 kilowatt hours since we've had the solar panels installed. That includes 43 kilowatt hours that we used in that last week of August. So as you can see, that actually does work out about that 6 to 7 kilowatt hours per day as well. So let's see what the generation curve looks like. So if you watch my monthly recap videos, you will see one of these curves. So you can see this line graph is effectively what our solar generation has been like day to day over the past the last 4 months in 2022. And you can see in the summer months we are getting quite often quite high generation figures in the and our maximum day has been over 26 kilowatt hours, which was hit in September. But even in August, we were getting up that 25 kilowatt hours on multiple days as well. But as you can see, there's a general trail down towards the year. So solar generation through the year should be like a bell-shaped curve, set over midsummer, which is in the middle of June here in the UK. So As I say, our maximum power day for generation, we produced just over 25 kilowatt hours. Our lowest generation day was in December, where we only had about 0.2 of a kilowatt hour generated. So that's well below how much energy we would be using in a day. So I'm just going back up to my other graph now. So the battery is really important for this, and I'm making another video where I calculate how much a battery would save you if you had a battery installed, and also is it worth having an extra battery fitted if you already have a battery. So expect that video out soon, if not already before this you see this video. So let's have a look at what happened to that energy that we generated. So you can see from that graph that we were getting generation over that time. So we generated a total of 1,239.63 kilowatt hours since from the 24th of August through to the 31st of December. That works out at 1.24 megawatt hours. According to the Solace app, that is the equivalent of planting 0.67 of a tree, and is the equivalent of 1.25 tons of CO2 that we have not therefore generated if our electricity was being produced by a CO2 producing method. Right, so in theory we shouldn't have paid for any electricity because we've produced at least 430 kilowatt hours more than we have used. However, that's not strictly true, because in the summer we had massive excess, and in the winter we were well under what we needed, and our battery system is only a 5 kilowatt hour one, and therefore isn't suitable or can't store that energy, much energy we want. In an ideal world, we'd be able to save all the energy in our house and therefore just use it when we need, but that's not particularly practical. We should point out that in other countries, so I watched a video from somebody in America, and they have basically a feed into the grid and then import back scheme. So if they do produce excess, they can export it to the grid, but then they can import it back at no extra cost. So that's an interesting system, and I'll get onto my own seg payment in a minute. So out of that 808 kilowatt hours that we use in electricity this year, of that 651 kilowatt hours was from our own generation. So that is roughly it's just under 80% we generated ourselves. In terms of actually percentages, it's 77.12%. So in other words, we were 22.88% reliant on the grid, which means we have imported from the grid a total of 202 kilowatt hours from the grid for that last part of 2022. Sorry, the cloud. I was filming this in natural daylight, and a cloud has just gone over, so our solar generation has probably just dropped off, and that's why the picture has suddenly gone a bit darker. So what does this mean in terms of money? Well, our tariff, and people have been commenting on this, I was really lucky that I fixed for a 2.5-year tariff with British Gas back in, I think it was about May or June of 2021, and that tariff kicked in August, September time, which means we're fixed until March 2024, and the rate we're paying is 19.5p per kilowatt hour and a standing charge of 24p a day for our electricity. Our gas is similarly low as well. Obviously, with the war in Ukraine and inflation and all these sort of issues, electricity prices in the UK have gone up massively. I was watching a video on YouTube of Simon's electric vehicles sales. It's a guy called Richard Simons based down in Bournemouth who basically sells electric cars second hand, lots of Teslas and stuff like that. And they were saying in their latest video that their business rate electricity has gone from 16p per kilowatt hour up to 90p per kilowatt hour. Hasn't been quite that dramatic in the households yet, but that's because it's been kept artificially low by the government price cap, which has actually superseded the Ofcom or the Ofgem, whichever the energy regulated price cap. So the prices are capped per kilowatt hour in the UK at about 34 pence at the moment, but as you can see we are well below that. So using my own tariff of 19.5p, the amount I spent on import, and this is excluding the standing charge, because I can't actually do anything about that, is £37 and 83p. If I added the standing charge on, it'll be about £67. So that's how much money we've given to British Gas for over 4 months of electricity use, which means we have saved £127.52 in that time. So it's a significant saving. As you can see, we don't actually spend that much on electricity compared to some people, but it is a significant saving. As far as export is concerned, the total amount we have exported over the period in 2022 is 615 kilowatt hours. That's how much we've spent back to the grid. So that's nearly 75% of the actual energy we actually have used in that period. So in the UK we have something called the SEG tariff, which is a smart export guarantee, which basically means that you can sign up to an energy company and they'll pay you for the export. The amount you get paid is very, very low. If you were on the old FIT tariff, which was the old feed-in tariff, you got much better deals. But we went with So Energy, and our export tariff kicked in on the 21st of September. Actually, we're still going through the actual paperwork then, but they're backdating it to then, because I'm one of the first customers to sign up with them. And I'll make a video on that once everything has gone through and is finalised. So at that 5p export, which I say is one of the better rates, there are a few companies that if you're already with them and you have import off them, pay more. Someone like Tesla do that, and also Octopus Energy. But if you are just looking around, about 5p is about the best you can get normally. We made out of that. We couldn't have. This is not the full 605 kilowatt hours because we had that month where we were generating before the SEG tariff kicked in. But for what we did export and got paid for, we made £17.34. So that's a total of money now of adding our savings and that export of £144.86, which is a nice amount of money in for the year, which we wouldn't have already got. Obviously, it's still quite small fry compared to how much we paid for the system. And with current inflation and also interest rate with bank accounts, you can actually probably get about the same sort of yield from savings if you are thinking of solar panels and batteries and investment. Obviously, you don't get the green credentials then either, but that's whatever your thinking is. So can we use this to predict next year? Well, obviously, I haven't got a full year's data to actually just do a comparison. So what I'm going to have to do is think logically about this. So as I say, solar generation follows a bell curve which should peak around the midsummer, so late June, early July. And I'm going to assume then that that bell curve is symmetric on both sides, and therefore I can draw comparisons between months. So if I'm assuming the year is going to pivot or have that inflection point in mid-June, I can sort of say that the December is going to be roughly equal to January, November is roughly equal to February, October is roughly equal to March and September is roughly equal to April, which means that next year my tariff's not changing. I should get at least double that just from those 8 months what I've already made this year. So that's about £290 for those 8 months. And then we've got that 17-week period in the middle where we're going to have that peak and coming down either side. So I'm just going to say, well, the only thing I've got is that week at the end of August. So I'm going to apply that week at the end of August for my usage for that full 17 weeks. In reality, it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that, as we're going to be rising up to a peak. But in that week, we generated 143 kilowatt hours, which means that over that 17-week period, we could potentially generate 2,430 kilowatt hours. And our money on import was really low. It was over that period, that week period, it was only 42p. So if we do 42p times 17, we end up with, I'll be paying over that sort of 4-month period, I'll be paying British Gas an extra £7. So that means if we add that to the roughly 74 that I would have paid British Gas for those other 8 months that I'm predicting, we are now up to about £80 for a whole year of electricity. In savings over that time, we can do, it's pretty much going to be exactly the same amount of money that we save this year if we're using that 200 kilowatt hours and we're not really generating that much. So we can do 4 months of 200, which is 800 kilowatt hours, probably a bit more, less up at 850, multiplied by the 19p that we pay, or 19.5p. So that's another saving of £165. And then we have the export, which will be about another 1,600, multiplied by that 0.05 is another £80. So next year we are looking at making savings of, what's that, £250, £430, and also getting probably money from export of another 120ish. So that probably works out about £550 we would have made next year by having the solar panels. So that's my prediction. So next year I'll come back and see if that prediction is true. Also in August, having a year since having the solar panels, I'll make a video where I also then probably update this prediction. So what's my observations of having solar panels? They do work. They even work in the cold weather. We luckily didn't have any snow, so I've just had a comment saying I'll be interested to see how the adverse weather affects us over the next few months in the UK. We're about to hit storm season, so we don't have storm season like the US, but we do get quite a lot of wind. We get lots of dark days and cloud. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for that. One observation I have, and this comes back from the battery video, is when putting in a solar system, battery system, stock a battery, get as big a battery as you can. And look at what your daily usage is, and try and get a battery which is bigger than it, or at least, and more importantly, has a usable capacity or usable output which is bigger than that. So that's something else I've blown away. So this video has gone on a bit, it's only 20 minutes, so well done if you stayed to the end of this. Thank you for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again very soon. Take care.